everyone, it's Jacqueline.
And Adam.
For Pixie Dust PhD. We just very recently returned from our short trip down to Walt Disney World, which included a day at EPCOT to experience Festival of the Arts. The festival started on January 13th. We were there on January 20th, so a week into it going, and the festival runs through February 20th. So we're trying to put this video out pretty quick to give you our tasting notes on the festival booths, the food and drink items that we experienced. That way, if you are headed down there in the next couple of weeks, hopefully this will be helpful for you. Otherwise, maybe you'll enjoy our fun commentary, and hey, you never know what items they'll bring back next year. Thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate your support. If you enjoy the content that we put out, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can ring the bell icon to receive notifications whenever we post new videos. And if you want to chat about anything Festival of the Arts, EPCOT, or Disney really, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at PixieDustPhD. Let's get into it then, our tasting notes. So I think we'll go in chronological order of what we had. We definitely didn't have like one thing from every booth. We were only there for one day, and we also had a sit-down lunch, so there's only so much food we could eat. But first things first, we roped drop Goshiki, which is the Japan Pavilion Festival booth. And there we got the rainbow Katsu Sando, so it's half of a sandwich on rainbow bread. It's a pork cutlet cooked as Katsu. What did you think?
I thought that it was a good snack. I think it was decent size, but it felt like that we got obviously one of the first people in line that day. That this was probably made like an hour or two ago or something.
Yeah, it didn't seem fresh.
And it was just sitting under like a warm heater until they opened, which not ideal for a fried item, but it was still a good snack, decent portion size for the price, and it had a really nice like ginger pickled ginger pickled radish kind of slaw that helped on the side that like helped cut through like the richness of the fried pork cutlet.
Yeah, so I think it was above average, and I think it's worth getting, but set your expectations correctly. And I'll anchor this with I'm Japanese. I grew up eating katsu, and we live in an area that has enough Asian people where we can get really good katsu sandwiches at home. So it's always a tough comparator, I would say. Everything about it was good enough. The pork cutlet was good. The breading was good. I will say they were separating, so there was a little bit of technique issue there, or like Adam said, it had been sitting for a while. I do think that the panko that they used was either really fine to begin with, or they milled it to be finer than usual. Usually katsu has quite like a crusty exterior of like big panko pieces. It's to me a defining feature, and I felt like that was missing. It almost could have been just like a normal breadcrumb instead of panko, which is lame. The bread was beautiful, but I firmly believe it was not milk bread, which typically katsu sandwiches are served with Japanese milk bread. It's light, it's fluffy, it's airy. It's such a wonderful experience. It's kind of like Wonder Bread, but if you made it well and not packed full of preservatives. The rainbow bread just seemed like sandwich bread, and it was a little sweet. I think it was overly sugary. And when I bit into it, it like dissolved and got really sticky on my teeth, which I found to be super not pleasant.
But overall, I do think it was a good dish that, if you want like a, nice little sandwich, it does the trick for sure.
Yeah, and if you aren't accustomed to eating katsu in your day-to-day life, I think you'll really enjoy this. I think just, if you do have a good Japanese place near you, or if you grew up eating it, like, oh, I have complaints.
Yeah, everyone likes a fried cutlet.
Yeah. But I mean, it was, I think it was a decent value, and it was very pretty in terms of the arts factor. The bread was pretty, even though I really don't think it was milk bread. After this, we headed over to Figment's Inspiration Station at the Odyssey, where Adam got the rainbow beer flight, and I got the rainbow cider flight.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun to look at, and there were certainly some winners and some losers.
Yeah, so I'll start with the cider flight. There was blood orange, passion fruit, and black cherry. And the black cherry was straight up bad. Like, it was disgusting. Like, it was like cough syrup cherry. I've had good cherry drinks before. This was not it.
Yeah, and for me, we had the classic St. Patty's Day green beer, and a butterfly pea dyed beer, and then a red sour, fruit sour, which I personally thought was the most interesting.
Yeah.
If you don't have sours very often, it was a decent sour beer. And if you're not a particular big fan of sour, I think it was a good approachable
Oh
sour
yeah,
beer.
it wasn't super weird like some sours can get.
Exactly. And then I did like the green beer. The blue beer was kind of meh, but
It wasn't that blue either. If you ask me, it's still green.
It was like a greenish, bluish hue for sure. But the beers, they didn't have any absolute losers. I did try the cherry that the Jacqueline was said was bad, and it was
bad.
It was bad. Yeah.
Real bad. The other two were good. I don't think they were standouts. I just enjoy blood orange and passion fruit as flavors, so those ciders were good.
Yeah.
But yeah, the black cherry was bad. Like I would say don't buy the flight even because the black cherry was so bad.
Yeah, I agree.
And they keep calling things rainbow that are not rainbow. There was no purple. I don't think there was blue even, but like whatever, that's fine. So anyway, we had a nice drinks break. It is inside. There's not a ton of tables, so you do kind of have to hover to get one because they're using a lot of that space for the Figment popcorn buckets and then for festival merch. So not a lot of tables, but a nice indoor break. After that, we headed over to Deco Delights and we grabbed the Espresso Martini. So it was fine.
Yeah, it is dispensed out of basically one of those drink machines, and they call it a day. It was fine.
They didn't list out exactly what the ingredients are, but I'm having a hard time imagining it's anything more than espresso or cold brew, vodka, and some simple syrup. Like it was super basic.
Yeah. I would not probably get it again, but it was fine.
Yeah, I think it served its purpose. I think it was $11.50. Future Jacqueline will add more information into this video. For like a vodka cocktail at Disney, it wasn't terribly priced. It's just that if you live in an area where espresso martinis are a thing, like for the past few years, I would say, they've been big where we live for brunch and just at bars. And so there's a lot of really amazing riffs and like very well-crafted drinks. And we like espresso martinis with rum or tequila and, you know, has a nice foam on top and all these things. So this was not that.
No, it was not a fancy cocktail. It was just, you know, classic.
It
existed. Yeah.
And so here's the kicker that is really like still making me mad. They give it to you in a little plastic coupe, which is cute. That's fine. I appreciate the presentation. But then they put some espresso beans in it, which is normal for an espresso martini. But when you get a shaken espresso martini, again, it has like a foam head on it, so the beans float. This was just like a clearish, brownish liquid, so the beans sunk. And then the coupe, like the stem is part of the glass, so the beans sunk into the stem. And we just got like perfectly unlucky where one of the beans was the exact right size to get like lodged in the stem. And it trapped some drink below it. And then also obviously you couldn't eat the bean. So
yeah,
Adam literally ended up like breaking the cup a little to get the rest of our drink because we paid for it.
Yeah, it was like shotgunning espresso martini out of a broken plastic coupe.
Yeah, so the design on that is bad. I think like don't include the beans or put it in a different type of cup where the beans aren't going to get lodged in the stem of your cup.
Yeah, I think we just got particularly unlucky.
We did.
But it was still pretty funny.
Still annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but overall I'd say like if you want a little bit of vodka and a little bit of caffeine, I think this is appropriately priced.
For sure.
Don't expect a great espresso martini, but it's fine. If you don't want those things, I think this is very skippable. After our espresso martini, we did actually break for our sit-down lunch. And then, you know, we took some time, did some of the sights and attractions before we resumed our Festival of the Arts journey. But next we headed over to Pastoral Palate, which is the Festival of the Arts booth in Germany. And there we ordered the red wine braised short rib. It's cut of beef, and it comes with the parsnip puree and also the Black Forest cake. So for me, this was fantastic. How about you?
I really enjoyed it. It was definitely exactly what you would expect from a braised short rib that's has a little bit of extra special to it. It looked very pretty, and you know, when you got a bite with everything, it was very good.
I don't really think it looked that pretty. It was a hunk of meat, but it was super tender, very juicy, tasted great, no complaints. And it came with this parsnip puree, which I was expecting very little of because I know what parsnips taste like, which is not much. I don't know if they just add a ton of butter or cream or whatever, but like probably. Parsnip puree was good.
Yeah, it was tasty. And then, of course, the Black Forest cake was absolutely a winner, especially when you realize they actually put the cherries inside the cake, like you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Right? So that was definitely a nice dish to get.
It was good. It wasn't the best Black Forest cake I've ever had, but it was definitely above average. It was very tasty. Some of the cherries were coated in like a little bit of a weird gelatinous mixture, which I didn't love.
Yeah.
And I think the dark chocolate could have been amped up a little bit more, but they are catering to like the masses. So I understand they didn't want to make like a fairly bitter dessert, but like that was good. And it was pretty cheap. and I would order it again for sure. Both the Black Forest cake and the braised short rib. Then we strolled over to the Mexico Pavilion, and that food and wine booth is El Artista Hambriento, which we got the Carne Asada dish and the Las Californias drink.
Yeah, I definitely thought the Carne Asada was really well done. Not in the sense of the cook, but like in terms of the dish.
It was like medium cook.
It was like medium well, yeah. So, I mean, obviously you get some variability with the doneness of your meat, but it was really well spiced crust, and the bites were good. I know it's definitely one of the more expensive dishes that you can get from a booth during the festival, but it was definitely, very unique and very good.
Yeah, it was tasty. I do prefer my beef to be more medium rare, and like Adam said, I think especially with like carne asada, there's going to be a lot of variability on how the pieces of meat that you get are cooked. So it was a little more well done than I would have preferred, but it was, it was medium-ish, so still perfectly fine. You get 3 little slices of beef, so yeah, it is a little more expensive, but yeah, the spices were on point. It was flavorful. It came with sweet potato puree, I think, which I just don't really care for sweet potatoes, so it didn't really do anything for me. But did you like it?
Yeah, it was fine. Complemented the richness of the beef well. And then, yeah, I think just transitioning the drink, I think it was really very pretty, and they gave you a nice salt garnish, and the color was a very fun addition to the drink. And but I mean, the tequila came through, and it was like probably a better margarita than you're gonna get at Las Margaritas.
What is Las Margaritas?
The margarita booth.
The outside margarita stand.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, I don't either, but
we're not aficionados. Yeah, so it's primarily a tequila drink, and then it had strawberry lime puree, I think, and supposedly some gin. I didn't really taste the gin at all. I think it was probably not
strong
that much.
Flavor.
It was mostly tequila. And then yeah, it was a really beautiful deep red color, which I'm not sure how they got from like strawberry lime, but whatever. I thought it was tasty. It wasn't complex. These are all pre-batched drinks, so it tastes like tequila and juice, but it was good tequila and good juice.
Yeah.
Not mad about that. And the plastic glass it came in was very pretty. It was like angular, and yeah, you got the salt/sugar rim that they also made a little bit of that red color. So it's not the best drink I've ever had, but I think if you're going to wait in the line at the Mexico booth, I would suggest the drink. I think I also would recommend the carne asada, but I don't think it was as good as the short rib from Germany.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure. I mean, I think the Mexico booth has a lot of crowd pleasers as well.
Yeah.
So definitely something to stop by and check out. So one booth that I had that Jacqueline did not is at Moderne. I had the Angry Crab, which I think is just a catchy name because it wasn't that spicy, but it was pretty good deal for like a whole small self-shell crab. Not sure exactly how they came up with that name, but it had a little bit of spice to it, but it's mainly just a small fried crab. And if you like fried crab, it could be a dish for you. It's definitely not for everybody, but I did enjoy it. It was a decent portion. You got, probably half a dozen bites between everything, and it was good, but definitely, probably not in my top 2 dishes.
So like good but forgettable?
Yeah, it was good but forgettable. Right. I think if you really like soft shell crab, you should get it because it's a good take on a dish. It's hard to mess that up. But if you're trying to be adventurous and not a big fan of crab and think it's going to be some artful take on fried crab, no, it's not that. It's just a small fried crab. They give it to you. It's good when it's fresh. If it's sitting for more than 10-15 minutes, it's going to be hit or miss.
Yeah, we also do live in the DC area, so Maryland crab
Mid-Atlantic
is here. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
Those were not crabs from Maryland.
No, they were frozen, shipped in, deep fried, made it look pretty. It was good because I do like crab, and if you like soft shell crab and want to get it in Disney, this is not a bad place to do it. Definitely something I'm glad I tried. However, definitely not as good as some of the other items on World Showcase for sure.
And last but not least, for our Festival of the Arts food adventures, we got the Gnocchi Poutine from Refreshment Ports. That's over near Canada. This was definitely more expensive. It was about $10, I think, but it was a large portion, unlike many of the other bites.
No, absolutely. That would be my first comment. It was absolutely a larger than expected portion, even when you're, paying a little bit for a more expensive dish at a festival. This was definitely something where, it took us, probably we split it first of all, and we probably each got, probably close to 10 bites.
Yeah, I'd say 10 bites. Yeah. I mean, gnocchi they're normal size gnocchi, so, there's probably at least 20 gnocchi in there.
But between the short rib, the cheese curds, and the gnocchi, you could really get everything in one bite, and you got a lot of bites, which was pretty good. So it was a very homey comfort food dish. The gnocchi was fried, and that really added a nice texture when you compare it with the squeaky curds with the really comforting short rib.
Yeah, so like Adam said, the gnocchi I don't know if they must have been fried, right?
They were fried.
I was expecting just like normal boiled gnocchi, and then it came out and they're like crispy on the outside, which was so fun for me, but they were still tender and like fluffy on the inside. So it kind of mimicked a French fry in that way, like you would expect with poutine, I guess, but I just had no idea they were going to be fried. So that was a really fun textural element. And then I would say overall, this dish was kind of a surprise hit for me because none of the individual elements were like outstanding. But yeah, when you got that bite with everything together, and gnocchi, a little bit of beef with a little bit of gravy, cheese curd, maybe some burrata, like it was very good. And I'm not a big gravy person, so I'm always a little bit wary of poutine because sometimes they really dump it on. This did not have too much gravy at all. Cheese curds were appropriately squeaky, and there was a decent number of them. There wasn't a ton of burrata, but you're only paying $10, so that's to be expected. My only real complaint, I guess, is I wish there was more basil, even if they did like dried basil instead of fresh basil. But I really like basil. Yeah, so don't let the $10 price tag scare you because it is big, and I think it was quite tasty.
Yeah, I think of of all the dishes we had, that was definitely the best value.
I think so, yeah.
For sure.
And I guess the only other complaint I have is I don't understand what it has to do with Festival of the Arts. Like, it wasn't presented artfully at all.
Yeah.
You get the gnocchi and then they pile the stuff on top in was it like a paper bowl?
Yeah.
Standard whatever paper bowl you would buy at the grocery store. But I still think it's worth it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Maybe it's because it was at Refreshment Port, not officially a booth, but who knows, right?
Well, I mean, so Refreshment Port is always there. It's not like a not permanent booth, but this is an item for the festival according to the festival booklet. So that was our adventure of food and drinks at Festival of the Arts. Do you have a winner?
I'd have to go with the poutine as the sneaky hit.
There you go.
Yeah.
I would go with Germany. I'm going to count both of our items. I do think the poutine is probably the best value. Like you said, it's probably the most worth it in that sense. But in terms of like, I would just eat a lot of like you could line up a lot of portions of this and I would eat them. Definitely that short rib from Germany and the Black Forest cake from Germany.
Yeah, I think those are definitely ones where I probably would have enjoyed it if we hadn't just eaten lunch, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
But they were still very delicious, and I think those would have been really good. Those that were definitely second place for me, for sure.
And with winners in mind, let's now talk about losers. So for me, I think it's pretty obvious that the rainbow cider flat, which it's really just the black cherry one. The other two are good and tasty, and just order a cider in a not flight portion, I would say.
Yeah, I feel like they could have definitely gotten another cherry cider from somewhere else and have made everyone a lot happier. Because I think when people think cherry, we got to give them that cough syrup cherry flavor. No one, very few people like that.
Raspberry cider exists and it's almost always good. It's so bad. It was bad.
Yeah, it's not like we're trying to have a nice day. We're not trying to feel like we're inside drinking cough syrup. Right up cut. We're here to have a good time. Yeah. I think that definitely is my worst as well, because it was not good. Only had 2 sips just to kind of help finish it off, but man, it was not great.
Oh, I finished it like a champ because we paid for it. So there you go.
Yes.
And I think honorable mention loser probably is the espresso martini for me. Like, it's fine. It was totally fine. But I don't know. There's other coffee cocktails at the festival. We didn't have them, but I would suggest trying one of those instead.
Yeah, definitely. I think you go to a Joffrey's booth and get a much better alcoholic coffee drink, and it's going to be great. or much better compared to that espresso. Food-wise, though, I think there wasn't anything so terrible.
No.
I think it's just some of the ill-conceived drink pairings or combinations that kind of left us wanting more. But all of the food was good. I mean, we didn't try everything, obviously. We just tried things that we thought we would really enjoy. And I think because of that, there were no obvious losers.
Yeah, I mean, again, all of the food was definitely above average, and I wouldn't say, like, don't get this. For me, I probably enjoyed the least the Carne Asada. But it was still good. Like, I'm not mad that we paid for it.
No, I'd agree. Between that, I think the Sando was a little bit better of a constructed dish, just like everything together between the pork cutlet and the pickled radish ginger. Alternating those bites I really liked, but nothing was outstanding about that dish like with the short rib or the poutine.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. All right, well, that was our tasting notes from the dishes that we had at Festival of the Arts. I'm gonna rush to put this up, so you'll probably see this before any of the vlogs or stuff. Sorry for going out of order, but we wanted to try to be timely since there is a few weeks left in this year's festival. If you want to see more from our trip, be sure to stay tuned to the channel. More videos definitely are coming. And if you have any questions about the dishes that we did experience at Festival of the Arts, we'd be happy to help out. You can leave a comment down below, and we'll do our best to get back to you in a timely manner. Thanks so much for watching, and we hope the rest of your day is magical. We'll see you real soon at Pixie Dust PhD.
Bye.